Grooving and chilling with Chevy and Nasty here on a Tuesday night. Sheldon, bonjour.
Bonjour, my friend, mon ami. And it's a particularly chilly Tuesday night this week, isn't it?
Man,
Waking up this morning, 5 centimeters of fresh snow.
first of all,
Negative temperatures we haven't seen in a while. And right now, I mean, we're closer to May long weekend in Canada. What's that called in the States? Is that Veterans Weekend?
I'm not too sure. We have Victoria.
Well, we're closer to that than we are to the start of spring. And here we are, another blizzard, bringing with it all of the great Calgary driving right after people get their snow tires off.
Bringing it with all the great Calgary migraines that I get. This was another migraine day for me. Sheldon, I'm sick and tired of this weather. I grew up in Canada. I played in the cold weather. But come April, you want that snow to be gone. First of all, I had a migraine all day because of the winds and the snow that blew in. Debilitating, right? You wake up at 5 a.m., you got like a piercing knife through your eyeballs, and you take 2 or 3 Advil, 2 or 3 Tylenol, you drink some water, you sleep for another half hour, hope it goes away. It went away in the morning. I'm doing some, I'm with the fire department. I do fire safety presentations. I was doing an actual virtual online fire safety presentation for like over 200 kids. Midway through my second presentation in the morning, I felt so nauseous, man. I just sped through that thing and I was throwing up right after. And then to top it all off, I'm sick all day, and then I'm going to coach football in this garbage. Like, it's April, it's spring football, and it feels like we're getting ready for the Grey Cup. I'm sick, I'm tired, I want sun, I want heat, and I don't want to see snow anymore. I'm done with that. But
there you go, though, Chev. I'll tell you what. I think people come on the show to wrap up their Tuesday night to kind of get away from it all. And I see we've already got a great crew, a bunch of regulars, and a couple of new people popping in there. I'm pretty excited to see that, guys. Tonight we're going to take you on a little bit of a ride. Tonight's theme being epic. A few epic things happened in sports in the past week. And we're going to kind of delve into that theme, look at some sporting events, look at some road trip stuff, some things Chevy and I like to do. But we're going to try to keep all things epic tonight. Guys, thanks for joining us. Stay tuned. We'll be right back here on The Ride.
Okay, I'm going to apologize. I wasn't feeling that salty now. I was salty kind of leading up to now. Now I'm actually really happy because not only am I feeling better and I'm warm, I'm inside. Practice was cut short. I had time to warm up my feet. I had time to relax a little bit. But I'm in a better mood now because of the show. You know that every week doing the show is one of the highlights of my week. Doing the show with you. Our little hangout time with Jenna, even before the show, we should hang out a little bit more, but her being on the show, all her comments that come in, but also all of you that are joining us tonight, from the first comment from Guy Poirier of Tripping Through Transformation, to Jamin, your buddy Jamin, to Craig Hannum and the Rubio Method, and everyone falling in line. It's so good to see all of you here on the Tuesday night ride with Chevy and Nasty here on the NGBN.TV network. We want to remind you, we announced it last week, May 15th. If you live in Calgary or around Calgary, or in Lewiston, Idaho, and you want to drive up, May 15th, we are holding a men's mental health movie night. It's absolutely free. We'll post the link on our socials because I don't think we got it up tonight. But men's mental health movie night at the Cochrane Movie House. We're going to have a live fireside Chevy and Nasty chat. So we're going to do our thing for about 15, 20 minutes. We'll say 15 because, we're going to go overtime there too. We're going to have a great mental health chat with Brett Gardner. He's a Hall of Fame Canadian rodeo announcer. He's a sport performance coach, mental health coach. He deals with cowboys and farmers all across Alberta and the United States. He's also a former principal of a high school. He knows his stuff. I've seen him speak. It's awesome. And then we're going to top it off with this private screening of the Fall Guy. And we'll show you a little trailer for the movie later if you stay tuned. But right now, Sheldon, we got to get on with the show, and we got to start with the thing that kicks it off in style. It's that 300-pound poetry that you all wait for every week. And this week's special edition, written by the man himself, Mr. Sheldon Nasty Napasta. Let's go, Jenna.
It's Tuesday night, so you better be ready. We're coming in hot like a bowl of Mama Chevy's spaghetti.
So glad you can join us on tonight's epic ride. A week we'll all remember as the week that OJ died. Do we remember it as?
Yeah.
Yes. We didn't even talk about it last week, but whatever.
But speaking of epic, Canada's women reign supreme with an overtime finish, crushing the U.S. hockey team's dream.
Yeah. Ooh, and we got some Americans here tonight. A little bit of Canada-U.S. rivalry on the ride. After a third and final Grey Cup, CFL's Sean Lemon called it a career. And with a few stupid tweets, maybe the Argos' Chad Kelly's future, it's also near. I think
I think we're going to have to talk about that at some point for sure. So how do you road trip? Do you sit in silence or pump tunes? Chev and I will break down our favorite ways sometime in segment 2.
We are your 300-pound poets, and our rhymes aren't very inspired. In fact, they're quite bad, but that's how we're wired.
And no applause this time. Oh no.
That's a slow clap. That's a slow clap.
That's AC writes in, hey, hip hop beat on a 300-pound poetry segment. Maybe next week we'll give it a try. Maybe we'll try to spice it up here a little bit.
Maybe a little smooth jazz.
I'm excited about this one too. Look at this. Craig Hannum from Saving a Man's Life last Saturday, or the previous Saturday. He says he's in. Maybe we'll see him in Calgary, Alberta. That'd be something. I believe he's somewhere out there on the West Coast, isn't he?
That would be fantastic. Craig, you can bring your wife. You know what?
Absolutely.
It's Men's Mental Health Night, but I'm sure that your wife has been, for you to do the work that you do, Craig, going around Canada, U.S., talking to people about some of their toughest problems and mental health and depression and suicide. You have to have a strong woman with you that probably I would imagine that you bare your soul to sometimes. So I'm sure she can handle a room full of dudes. If she can handle a former Army dude like yourself that does the great work you do. So yeah, we'd love to have you. If you're listening tonight, we'll put out the link. I know it's on our Facebook and our Instagram, but we would love to have you. It's free, and it's all brought to you by our friends at Performance Freight Management. So PFM, our friend Daryl, I hope he's listening tonight, and maybe not. But if you're here, Daryl, thank you, because it's going to be a wonderful night.
Free but limited, Chevy. Free but limited.
Yes.
So right now, I think we have around just over 50 seats taken, and I'm not sure how many more we have left. Right. I
so it's about 150 seat theater.
Okay.
We're picking up momentum. We're going to try and do some things to pump it up. But yeah, it's free. Food, snacks. Chevy and Nasty will be provided. Brett Gardner will be provided, and the movie courtesy of the Cochrane Movie House and our friends at Performance Freight Management. So Sheldon, last weekend I called you up and I'm like, "Did you see it?" And you're like, "See what?" I'm like, "Did you not see it?" And we were talking about two different things. You're like, "I think I saw it." I'm like, "No, I don't know if you saw it because you would have texted me." Anyhow, what I was referring to was Saturday night's UFC showdown. I believe it was UFC 300.
300. Yeah.
And it was Max Holloway's knockout. I mean, I didn't watch the UFC because I was actually in Edmonton attending a cheer competition. I've become a cheer guy this year. I don't know how you say that, but my girlfriend's daughter had a cheer competition, so I missed quite a bit on the road here and there. But I turned on the internet machine, the social media machine, and if any of you have watched the UFC, the knockout that they were all talking about around the world was Max Holloway. Have a look at this. Finished with 1 second to go in the final round. Check this out.
Holloway shows some mortality. Look at this. Holloway just told him, stand right here. Oh! Big connection late. Goal! Gaethje face first on the canvas.
And rocking the floral shorts nonetheless.
Yeah, so I was talking about that epic finish, and I mean, geez, like I looked at that, I must have seen 30 different angles from different people that took video of it during the show. I just couldn't take my eyes off it. But when I asked if you saw it, you were referring to a different sport. So let's play that one, Jenna. Let's play the Team Canada Women's final against the United States. Let's see what happened there.
Ambrose pulls it back. She waits her shot. Rebound in front. She scores! Danielle Sarjagny has done it in overtime. Canada plays spoiler in Utica.
Yeah, wow.
I got goosebumps watching both of those.
Yeah.
So now that we've seen them both side by side, we were both watching different things. What do you think was a better finish? Like, what are you thinking, Joe?
Well, you know what? I'll tell you, I love the team sport because you're talking about two different things: individual sport, along with just the adrenaline of the crowd watching a fight, versus country. But I'll tell you what, I've seen overtime wins before, and that was a huge one by the Canadian girls. I mean, they got beaten in the gold medal round last year. They're playing in hostile territory in Utica, New York. USA.
They were underdogs. They were
underdogs. The USA chants were going all night long. So an absolute epic win for sure. But have you ever seen a bout like that come down to the last second? I think he was hit just inside the 2-second mark, and he hit the canvas with maybe 0.05 remaining on that clock. I mean, that is a true buzzer beater. I don't think I've ever seen that in a fight.
I have never seen it either. I had to say, like I said, I wasn't paying attention. It's been a while since I've watched UFC. Gotta tell you, I used to be really into it. George St. Pierre was a big draw for Canadians, right? But then the UFC got into this grapple fest where guys were getting points and you couldn't even tell what was going on. There were no knockouts. Then Conor McGregor comes in with his brash and flash, and that was good, the John Bones Jones era. But I kind of never really got into it like I was during the GSP or even the Chuck Liddell era. So I kind of fallen off. But every once in a while, I pick one up. And this one hit the radar hard. Because when I saw that, I was floored. I was floored. But when you look at that team sport, Team Canada Women's, I've actually voiced my opinions on women's hockey in terms of the fact that, especially on the international play, I don't like the big tournaments, just like I don't like the Canadian World Junior tournaments, because it's really in the Canadian men's World Juniors, it's maybe a 4-horse race, but in women's hockey around the world, it's a 2-horse race. I don't care about watching a tournament until they get to that game, that Canada-US game, and then it matters. Yeah. Man, does it matter. And so when you asked me if I had seen the game, I actually hadn't. I hadn't seen the circumstances surrounding it, but the U.S. tied that game up to send it to overtime. Like, it wasn't like, man, it was a struggle. And I got to say, the fight was very engaging. To see that guy hit the ground, and you're looking at the clock, and it hits one, ref calls it. I mean, 1 second later, that blow lines, once that guy slips that one punch, and we don't get that fantastic finish. But, being Canadian, like I said, when I will be true and honest that, when I think something's not competitive, I'm not going to be all into it. I'm not going to get all behind it. But, man, when you see that, the Canada and U.S., the two best teams in the world facing off, and then your country comes up with the win, man, I had goosebumps tonight just watching that. So, for me, that was the more epic finish of the weekend. Although I love that knockout, I'm going to side with Nana Mana and all the proud Canadians on the broadcast tonight. Go Canada, go. I know we got a bunch of Americans here. We also have a bunch of new people listening in. My buddy Lonnie Damas. Lonnie, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us tonight. Robin and Shauna Bones. Sorry, I can't read. I got bad context. But thank you all for joining us tonight. Sheldon, we got some time. Epic finishes. What are some of your more memorable finishes that you've witnessed, that you remember as a fan, spectator? And is there any that you played in that you can just really be like, yeah, that was a finish?
Well, for me, like, and I know it's so like 30 years ago, maybe longer. I should be careful. But I still remember when the Saskatchewan Roughriders were coming off 11 straight years of no playoffs, and one year they squeaked in, and then the next year, at 8-8, they got in again, and as underdogs crawled their way all the way through the finals to face Hamilton Tiger Cats in the Skydome, the first year that the Skydome was built. Yeah. And there was this epic game, 50, 60,000 people, 50,000 were Rider fans. And watching the Riders go back and forth and finally settle in for that, I think it was a 43-yard field goal by Dave Ridgway with like his time's expiring. I think there's 3 seconds left on the clock. But just, that childhood good versus evil, the way that you looked at your sports team back then, for me, it's still hard to match the feeling that I had from that game. But what about you? Any sport, Chev, any sport, what stands out for you as the most epic finish you've seen?
In terms of epic finishes that I've seen, that I remember, again, I have a hard time remembering a lot of sports things, but one of the ones that stood out to me, and I wasn't even a fan, some of the finishes that I remember were of teams that I wasn't a fan of. You talk about the Rough Riders. I'll go there more recently, I believe it was 2010. An epic finish isn't always great. The Rough Riders line up for a game-winning field goal in the Grey Cup. Okay, they kick the field goal. It's good. Everyone's about to celebrate, and referee blows the whistle. Too many men on the field. Back them up, kick it again. And what happens? They miss. Montreal wins the Grey Cup. 13th man. That was a huge one that I remember always. As a kid, gosh, I watched so many epic sports teams. Like, you got the Montreal Canadiens growing up in the heart of one of the greatest sports cities in town, Montreal Expos. But one of the finishes that I remember the best was the Joe Carter walk-off home run for the World Series. Joe Carter was like an old dude, right? If you look at, I was looking at Bleacher Report today on the top 100 finishes in sports. That is number 4. If in the deciding game, it came up, and it was Joe Carter versus, if you remember, Mitch the Wild Thing Williams from the Phillies. He had the big mullet back in the 80s when no one was rocking the mullet. And man, he hit that home run, and his celebration jumping from base to base. And in those days, no one did that in baseball. Right? Remember how that, speaking of Blue Jays, Joe Bautista, when he did the bat flip, and the turmoil it caused in baseball. Gosh, so some of those were great. But the one that stands out to me as a fan, I would say as an epic finish, was Tom Brady's comeback win against the Atlanta Falcons in the Super Bowl. They were down 17 points, or they were down 28-3. So that's 25 points with 17 minutes left. Okay, and Atlanta was celebrating, and I'll always remember I watched one of these post-game like NFL films, and there's 2 Falcon DBs sitting on the bench. They're looking at each other and they're talking, and the rest of the team celebrating. One guy's like, "Man, I don't know. This is Tom Brady, man. This is Tom Brady. We got to be." And the other guy's like, "Yeah, man. We got to watch out. This is Tom friggin' Brady." And then he did what Tom Brady did, and he won that Super Bowl. So for that one, that was a memorable one for me. Sean, what about you as a player? Was there an epic finish for you? Like, you had a long career with both the Riders and the Stamps. Was there one game, one finish that really stood out for you?
You know what, there really was, and like you all know that have listened. I've never won the Grey Cup. 8 years in an 8-team league back then, never won the Grey Cup. But I don't think it always has to be a championship to be epic. Oh, excuse me, sorry about that. But the game that I remember the most, it was 2004. Now, were you with the Eskimos then, or were you in the
2004?
States?
I was actually with the New York Jets, so I was down in the States. Yeah.
So you weren't there, but Mike Pringle was reaching the end of his career. And, he was within a couple thousand yards at the start of the season of breaking the great George Reed's record. Fast forward into the season, maybe not 2,000 yards, a little bit less. This was the Labor Day rematch. So we, like 4 days after the Labor Day game, we drive up to Edmonton, and he needed something like 113 yards. Well, Tom Higgins comes out against us and is just running the ball. I mean, it was ridiculous. Now, as the game went on too, I think by the end of the first quarter, we were down 21-6 without the defense giving up a true touchdown yet. We'd had like a kickoff return for a touchdown, an interception that was run back, and a couple of turnovers or whatever. But they got the lead on us early. And from that point on, they just handed the ball to Pringle every play. Fast forward in the fourth quarter, and it was at 2 minutes and 44 seconds. He needed 3 yards to break George Reed's record, right? At this point, we're down, what was the score? 44 to like not enough, right? 44-12, I think it was. And they just kept handing him the ball. Tom Higgins lined up double tight ends, was running it on first down, second down, third down. He didn't care. He was going to get Pringle that record that night at home. They even had George Reed in the building. But on the last 3 plays, we threw him for a loss on each of the consecutive plays, and they ended up about 8 or 9 yards short. Now, that's a kind of a pointless story. Nobody cared. The Stamps got blown out that day. We weren't a playoff contender. But if you saw our defense celebrating at that end of the game, finishing the game on the field, celebrating like we just won the Super Bowl. I mean, that was, for me, the most David versus Goliath matchup that I've ever had. A team that was determined to get him the record, and us that didn't want to be in the record book. I Googled it today, and there was no mention of that game. You can't even find an article about that game. But you know what you saw? 57 articles about getting it on the first play the next week in BC. That's so to me, that was my epic finish. It's kind of a loser story, but I didn't feel like a loser. And that's one of the proud moments I'll bring with me.
But I think that's an important lesson, because you know what? For every team that wins, for every epic finish that's out there, that someone achieves something great, there's what the rest of the league that doesn't win. And, you know, people assume that, you know, when the season's over, people mail it in. Not everyone does. You play for pride. Even when you're in a game where you're getting blown out, you play for pride, and you and that defense played for pride. And that was one of the reasons I joined the Stampeders the following year, was because of the way that team played. Even though you didn't have a great record that year. You didn't have a great record. Coaching changes were made after that season, but the way your defense played, they kept most of that defense intact. They didn't make wholesale changes on that side of the ball. And that's a testament to how you guys played. Sheldon, there's so much we could talk about this. Maybe we'll spill it into the next segment. For those of you listening, those of you on with us, share us some of your more epic finishes. Do it in the comments. We'd love to read it. If you're not following us yet, you can follow us at Chevy and Nasty on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and X, Twitter, whatever it is. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back. We might chat a little bit more about this. We're going to chat about 2 CFL stars whose careers might be on the same trajectory, even though they're at different times in their career, and a little bit about our personalities and how we differ, especially on road trips. Join us next here on The Ride.
1 week after launching our exclusive sneak peek, NGBN TV was live for 3 days of continuous coverage from Super Bowl 58 in Las Vegas.
NGBN TV is live from Las Vegas for Super Bowl 58.
The one-of-a-kind streaming TV network for men in their 40s, 50s, and 60s was the conversation for the big game about men's mental health in the world of athletes, celebrities, and influencers were on notice. But we're just getting started with new partnerships announced like the Team Nike 3-on-3 Championship and new platforms available to download the NGBN TV app. So, what are you waiting for? Download the app today from your favorite streaming device or check us out at ngbn.tv. This is NGBN TV.
Performance Freight Management is a global logistic freight shipping company that will handle the entire shipping process for any package to any country. Whether it be a simple truck shipment from your office to Toronto or your company importing generators from China, PFM Freight handles it all. We have the expertise and technology to handle any shipping requirements. Skip the guesswork and let us take the shipping pain off your plate.
Welcome back. It's The Ride with Chevy and Nasty. And a lot of comments here on on epic finishes. And yeah, Joe Carter is definitely a popular one. Crude Energy, trip and pipe on a rig when Big Joe hammered the big one home for the win. Rig horn sounded off loud for the Jays. I used to trip pipe on one of those rigs a couple of weeks ago on Rubio's show. Somebody put up a big diagram of like Roughnecks working, or maybe that was on ours, and he was like, "What the heck is that?" That was trip and pipe on a big rig, Rubio. If you remember that, that's a man's work.
You know what? That epic finishes segment was great because again, we love to talk sports, and I think about certain finishes and certain games. There was even a few finishes. Are there any that are kind of like obscure, not like what you were talking about in your experience, but I remember. So when Tim Tebow was brought in by the Broncos, right? There was half the world probably hated him, maybe more hated him. I don't know than half, but a lot of people really didn't want him to succeed. They really had a hate on for Tim Tebow. And then there was the other portion of fans that just wanted him to be that guy that he was at Florida with the Gators. And I was in the Tim Tebow fan club. I love what he represents. He still represents. He seems to be a really awesome dude. I don't know him personally, but I loved what he did. I loved how he carried himself. And when he got a shot with the Denver Broncos, he brought them to the playoffs that year. He was Tebowing all the way. And in that one playoff game versus the Steelers, they go to overtime. The only way you could end it, they had altered the rules. They said both teams will have a crack at it. But if a team ends it with a touchdown, it's game over. And first play of the overtime, Tim Tebow airs it up. And it was like Tebow. I thought that was an epic finish because here's a guy that, people were actively rooting for him to fail. Kind of like Brock Purdy, kind of like Josh Allen when he started with the Bills. People didn't want those young guns to succeed. And, I just loved that story. Robin and Shauna Flutie in Boston College. Yes, the Hail Mary.
Well, for sure.
You know what? And it's actually funny when I was researching some of these epic finishes, especially in football, some of the names that come up that finished the game in some crazy fashion with some big play, they were really good college football players, but that kind of cemented their legacy in college. And it also gave them an opportunity in the NFL that maybe they might not have otherwise gotten. There was Vince Young with Texas. He had an epic finish, right? And that might have bought him a couple of tryouts, hung around with the Titans, came to Saskatchewan for the Rough Riders, didn't make it through training camp. But yeah, if there's any others out there, I just want to see it because, again, being a hockey and football fan, there's so many that I can draw from. Personally, in my sporting experience for epic finishes, I don't think it was one particular game, and there might be one, I can't think, but winning the Grey Cup, and I know you said you didn't win one, but for me, winning the Grey Cup in 2003 in Regina, I'm not trying to rub it in, but we played the year before in Edmonton. I was with the Edmonton Eskimos. We played in front of our home crowd, 72,000 people in 2002. We were an unbelievable team. We were only matched by the Montreal Alouettes, and they came into our house and embarrassed us. They had a 100-yard pick return, and then on the very next play, they returned a short kick, I believe it was, for a touchdown because we tried the onside kick. We got embarrassed in our home turf. It took a whole year and a whole lot of struggling to get back to the Grey Cup, and it was a tough year for us. And we went back to Regina and we beat the team that beat us. Yeah, I remember sitting in the bus with the great Bruce Beaton. If you remember Bruce Beaton, offensive tackle, great player for Alouettes and also the Edmonton Eskimos. But he finished with us, but he started with the Owls. And he's sitting in the bus and he's just sitting there calm. And he said, after last year when we lost, each person to a man resolved that we would be here and we would not be denied. And I remember him saying that, and it's true. We would not be denied. And we struggled through that season, but it was just one of the best finishes for me personally. It was my first Grey Cup win. So for me, professionally, that was one of my epic finishes. But we should move on, Sheldon. We're going to talk again about our men's mental health movie night, May 15th. Okay, we talked about where it's going to be in Cochrane. We talked about our role in it. We talked about Brett Gardner's role in it, and we also mentioned that we're going to be doing a private screening of The Fall Guy. So, Sheldon, I don't know if you've seen the trailer for this movie, but it actually looks, speaking of epic, it looks like an epically fun movie.
It
so
does.
we got the trailer up for you. Have a look at this. I think it's going to be a great movie.
Film has everything.
Everything? Do you want to make out or?
Nope. Oh, yes.
This does not seem safe. Hell yeah!
We're getting tangled in exposition. Minerals. Oh.
What's an ice crime?
Are you saying ice cream or ice cream?
Ice crime.
Okay, it's just with your accent, it's hard. I'm not reporting an ice cream.
Yes, no, I get that.
Okay.
You're like sexy bacon.
What is this?
You know?
You need carbs!
What are you doing?
Just chilling down.
You even crying to Taylor Swift?
Doesn't everyone?
It looks
Doesn't
good.
everyone?
Doesn't everyone cry to Taylor Swift? No, it looks good. Movie about a stuntman that gets caught up in a murder plot, probably loosely based on the 80s TV show The Fall
Which
Guy.
I loved. Like, I loved that show growing up. Didn't you?
Oh, I absolutely did. It was one of my must tune-ins. That, and then when that went off the air, went into MacGyver. But that was the first, like, it was, you know, in the 80s, they had the best shows. They had the A-Team. They had Knight Rider. They had The Fall Guy. They had MacGyver. You couldn't go wrong when you turned on the tube.
Do you remember
in the
Greatest
80s.
American Hero?
Yes.
That is, when they make a remake of that movie, then that'll be our next movie night. But yeah, I'm excited, guys. If you're in town, if you can make it, come on down, join us. We're gonna feed you. We're gonna give you a movie.
Free.
We're gonna you can't wait to hear Gardner and Chevy's been telling me about his speech. It's inspiring. You haven't heard a talk until you've heard it straight from a guy that's ridden on a bull and calls fights for a living or calls bull rides for a living. Like I'm excited about that. And I'm excited that, do you see in the trailer that little glimpse of the 84 two-tone brown and beige Chevy 4x4? Yeah, man. That was the truck.
Well, and that was the other thing about the 80s. Every TV show had an epic vehicle, from the A-Team van.
Airwolf. Rob Evans just brought up Airwolf.
Yes. Remember Blue Thunder?
Yeah.
Blue Thunder. Yeah, that was another kind of helicopter show. I don't know if you remember this one. If anyone remembers this is epic. Hardcastle and McCormick. Do anyone remember that one? I hope you do. Or Riptide. They used to have the helicopter with the, there were so many good shows in the 80s.
Yeah, Screaming Mimi.
If I'm looking back at some of the comments, there's one that kind of leads into our next segment that we're going to talk about. Jamin said he hated last year as a CFL fan, but as the Montreal Alouettes fan, that was a big last-second win in the Grey Cup. That was a huge win. If you remember the Grey Cup, we were talking about that heavy. The pass from Cody Fajardo, the guy that was flushed down the toilet, along with his head coach, Jason Moss, who was the offensive coordinator, both flushed down the toilet from the Riders. They were has-beens, apparently, with a has-been team that wouldn't beat anyone. Go to the Grey Cup, and in the last, 3 seconds of the game, he completes a bomb to Philpott to seal the victory. And that game also featured none other than the great Sean Lemon, who we said we'd talk about today, announced his retirement last week. And he was, when we talk about epic, we got to talk about his epic performances leading up and really bringing his team to the Grey Cup.
Yeah.
What else can you say about that guy?
Well, what else can you say? I mean, I've never played with him. He came just after me, but I mean, he was one of those guys you just couldn't stop, right? Season in, season out. And even at the end of his career, it was just crazy because nobody would sign him. You know how they treat older CFL vets. NFL's probably a little similar, but here was a guy that was in the top 4 or 5 guys in sacks in the CFL for each of his last 5 years. And all of a sudden they just forgot that he could play. Nobody signed him. It wasn't until what, week 7, week 6.
Well, you know what's crazy is he played with the Stampeders in 2022. Okay, he had 17 games played in 2022. He had 14 sacks. 14 in his 12th season. So he had been already playing 12 seasons. He had 14 sacks with the Stamps. They decide to go somewhere else in free agency, not to re-sign him. He signs with BC Lions in the offseason, gets released, so he doesn't even play for BC, signs with the Alouettes about 5 games into the season, and still ends the season with 9 sacks. Okay, that's the season, right? Now, you recall what he did not in the Grey Cup, but in the final against the Hamilton Tiger Cats. They had 2 quarterbacks. They were platooning Matthew Schultz. They were platooning him with Bo Levi Mitchell, and they asked him before the game. They're like, "Hey, Sean Lemon, what do you think? How do you prepare for either Schultz or Bo Levi Mitchell?" He says, "I don't care who they put in. I'm going to sack them both." And what does he do?
Sacked them both.
He sacked them both. You talk about epic finishes, epic players. That was an epic calling your shot. He did it. He brought his team to the Grey Cup, and really, him and Darnell Sankey, who both were late or kind of late signings for the Alouettes, really motivated and really inspired that entire team. And he resigned in the offseason. I thought he was going to be back. I'm actually quite surprised. I'm not disappointed in him because obviously he's retiring on a high. He retired being the 13th player to reach 100 sacks in his 13th season. He played 13 games this year, and he won a Grey Cup. And for me, Sean was a teammate of mine way back when he started in Calgary in 2013. He had played in Edmonton in 2012. He was quite the badass in Edmonton. He had 6 sacks in 12 games. But he came to Calgary in 2013, and here was this guy. He had the dart visor. Anytime they pulled a guard, it didn't matter if it was like a walkthrough or a run skelly. He was blowing the dude up. Like, I never seen a guy with such a chip on his shoulder. And then when he took that helmet off, he was actually the most awesome dude ever. He was such a great teammate. I love playing with Sean. We had a few good years, won a Grey Cup together in 2014. And in fact, Sean was one of the first people that called me back in 2020 when I re-signed with the Stampeders during the COVID year when they needed a player. He messaged me on Instagram. He's like, "Chev, we need you. You better be ready." And then it kind of got the ball rolling that, I had these guys in the locker room pulling for me. And, when the coaches are asking, "Hey, who's ready? Who do you call?" I'm sure his influence was huge. So great way to end a career for a player.
Definitely. But you know what? There's great ways to end a career, and then there's not so great ways to end a career. And, this week on Twitter, we talked about it a few weeks ago, guys.
Yeah.
For those of you that don't know, Chad Kelly kind of cast out from the NFL, comes up to Canada, is playing in the CFL. And you know what? The guy does good. He advances with the Argonauts. Last year, he's a starting quarterback. Took him for an all-time, what were they, 17? And what was their record at the end of the year?
Yeah.
Guy's an absolute star. The guy's
absolute stud, most outstanding player. The year before, he takes over in the Grey Cup, wins the Grey Cup.
Yeah.
He's now the face of the CFL.
Yeah.
The highest paid player in the CFL. He's going to get all the endorsements. We forgot all about, I don't think anyone read his bio before he came up north. This guy's going to be the cat's pajamas in, arguably not the greatest franchise in the CFL, but the most important. Having a good presence
puts
in
them back on the map. Yeah, you need a healthy Toronto team. But then a few weeks ago, it comes out that the assistant strength coach, a female, has been with the club for 5 years. She was at a team function. She talked to the general manager and the head strength coach, saying that Chad Kelly has been sexually harassing her since the last offseason, calling her, asking her out on dates, sending inappropriate tweets. And the latest time that he turned her down, he went hostile on her, started talking about her within the players in the locker room. She went out, talked to the general manager. The next day, she's removed of her duties. she's fired. This is a bad look on the CFL. There's lawsuits involved now. Both Chad Kelly, the GM, and the Toronto Argonauts all being named. And Chad Kelly, what does he do? You think the guy would kind of lay low a little bit after that?
Yeah, just be quiet. Like,
just be quiet. Let everybody forget. It's a CFL. Nobody's talking about you right now. Just lay low. Well, then, of course, Caitlin Clark of the Iowa Hawkeyes just signs with the WNBA number one draft pick,
right? Number one draft pick.
So sells more jerseys than any other, I believe. Is this true? Any other number one draft pick?
Yeah, and I'm not sure if that's a WNBA thing or like.
I couldn't track it down, but she's still huge. A lot of jerseys.
Yeah, she's the biggest thing right now in sport. Right now, coming out of that Final Four tournament, everyone's talking about her in the last couple of weeks. She signs her deal. A great deal to play pro sports. Obviously, women's sports is not at the level where men's sports are right now. But geez, anytime you get an opportunity to get paid to do the thing you love, it's a pretty good deal. And I guess someone tweeted out today, right? Her salary, and I guess for next year it's going to be $74,000. And then it goes up 75, and then 80, and her option year is 92. And what does Chad Kelly do? He not only insults her, but he literally insults pretty much all his teammates, because for him to be the highest paid player in the CFL, there's a lot of guys that have to be playing for minimum salary. But basically, someone put out a tweet, oh, she's not even making practice squad money in the NBA. And he's like, welcome to that CFL money or something like that. Like, just a really underhanded tweet to that. One, you're already in trouble with women everywhere. Shut your mouth. Like, don't even talk about women's sport. Like, you're done. Like, just lay low, like you said. You know, wait for this to blow over if it does. And if not, well, then say what you want because you're going to be out of a job. But until then, shut up. But then the next thing he does is he's blasting the CFL. He's literally, I could complain about my salary when I was in the CFL because I made the lowest amount of money. It sucked. And it wasn't $70,000. It was a lot less than that when I was playing for minimum salary back then. But here's the highest paid player in the league. You know, in a $4 million salary cap league, taking probably a third of that money, and then everyone else having to play for Caitlin Clark money. And he's insulting the league and the players. Is like, you know what? You talked about it. What a way to start ending your career. He's on the right path, right?
So what do you do about that, though, Chef? Because he's still like the thing that really gets me right now, in any other pro league, you think that guy's already gone, history suspended. Like, I know you have to await proof in a trial, but with allegations like that and with his track record and history, you would think they might be announcing a suspension pending an investigation. But there's just been nothing coming out of the CFL. What kind of message is that sending out? What does that say about the CFL? Granted, if we lose him, Toronto loses all hope for next season.
Well, what's more important? You know, again, with the investigation, I still do believe that due diligence has to be done. There has to be an investigation. There has to be, you know, right now it's a lawsuit. She filed a lawsuit, but I want there to be, the CFL has ordered an investigation. All that is fine. What I have a problem with is the optics of this guy, how he represents himself. Like, if you see the rest of his stuff, he's I don't know. When you're in a position where you're
hold on one second. Hey, Craig, thanks for joining us. You go do what you got to do, man. But it's really appreciate you joining us here tonight.
Oh yeah, thank you, Craig. Yeah, you do what you have to do.
I'm telling you, Craig is a real life superhero, man. I've gotten a chance to talk to that guy a little bit since the show. What he does, I mean, he's basically a first responder on call. Yeah. Amazing dude, guys. An amazing dude.
Yeah, well, and we'll talk a little bit about that later because you can go back and check out his special. But thank you, Craig, for joining. And yeah, you go where you got to go. But with Chad Kelly, when you're in a position as a quarterback, you're the leader of a franchise. You look at some of the greatest athletes, you know, the ones that last, the ones that, you know, legacy guys. They don't say stupid things. They don't say too many controversial things. They definitely don't take the position that's opposite of what society deems as acceptable. And here's a guy, you know, if you go down his Twitter feed, he just says some of the stupidest things. He's immature, and you know, with some guys
to be immature. He's like,
that's what I'm saying. With some guys, you say, you know what? Maybe the guy's young, maybe he's dumb, maybe he needs some guidance. Give him a chance. But Chad Kelly, the problem is, if you look at his rap sheet, He's already had that opportunity when he was in the NFL. He got arrested for breaking and entering in someone's home. He's run into the law on several occasions, and now he's just adding to that terrible resume. And where I'm having the problem is not on Randy Ambrosie, because Randy Ambrosie, he's a leader of the CFL. He's got to kind of do what the team say. He put together, there's an independent investigation going on. They're going to wait to see what happens in the courts. Where I have a problem is with the Argonauts organization themselves. There's a lot of good people in that organization. I know a lot of people in there. There's one that I don't know well, but I look up to a guy like Pinball Clemens. What he has represented for the CFL for any time he's ever been involved as a player, as a coach, as an administrator. He really is the personification of class. And for him, that's how I see it. Maybe he's not. Maybe he's not.
Let me ask you, okay, get to your point. I have a question with that.
For him to stand behind this guy who is muddying that team, the oldest professional sports franchise in North America, it's disappointing. I get that it's hard right now because he was the league's most outstanding player.
We talked about this a while ago about would you do the right thing if there's going to be negative consequences with whistleblowing. This is a perfect example where, listen, we gotta walk the walk. This guy, I mean, we're treating it like it's a problem that's going to go away, and it's got to get dealt with. And I don't think it's a good look for the CFL. But before we go to break, Ernie Regas writes in 1989 Riders, the game I called, talking about they went into Edmonton. Edmonton was something like 14-2 that season. Riders had no business winning that game, but they believed, they got hot at the right time. And just like the Montreal Alouettes last year, a motivated group getting hot at the right time can do amazing things.
And that really is the story of the CFL, right? The team that goes hot into November can win that. They did it in Calgary too in 2012, a couple of years before you got there. But Sheldon, you know what? We do have to take a break. Just before we take a break, we want to make sure that you're following us on all our socials at Chevy and Nasty, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and X. We talked about May 15th. We talk about our sponsor, Performance Freight Management. They're the title sponsor of the show, but we also want to show some love to WeDrone, who sponsored this segment. Now, we're going to get back. We're going to warn you. We're warning you now, so don't be crying. Don't get mad. We are not going overtime tonight. We got lots of stuff going on in the morning. Jenna's got stuff going on, so no overtime. But when we get back, we're going to talk a little bit about Chevy and Nasty and get deep into our personalities. We might throw some other stuff in the trash, but this we want to get to. So take a quick break. Be right back.
1 week after launching our exclusive sneak peek, NGBN TV was live for 3 days of continuous coverage from Super Bowl 58 in Las Vegas.
NGBN TV is live from Las Vegas for Super Bowl 58.
The one-of-a-kind streaming TV network for men in their 40s, 50s, and 60s was the conversation for the big game about men's mental health in the world of athletes, celebrities, and influencers were on notice. But we're just getting started with new partnerships announced like the Team Nike 3-on-3 Championship and new platforms available to download the NGBN TV app. So, what are you waiting for? Download the app today from your favorite streaming device or check us out at ngbn.tv. This is NGBN TV.
You there?
I'm there. I was just reading a text that came in for me from Randy Chevrier here a couple of minutes ago.
No. Everything's all good, all good. Welcome back. It's our final segment of the Ride with Chevy and Nasty here on the NGBN.TV network, brought to you each week by Performance Freight Management and WeDrone. We got about 7 minutes, Sheldon. So let's get right to it. I call you up this weekend. You're like, we're gonna set it up. You're like, yeah, I had to go to the trailer out in Kukanusa. I had to change the toilets and driving back. We started talking. I called you on your drive back, and I was driving back from Edmonton, I believe, from a cheer competition. And you're like, man, man, I love this drive. I love this 4-hour drive. I turn off the radio, and I just sit in silence. And I'm like, what? Are you like crazy? I'm like, Sheldon, when I'm on a ride, that's where I call everyone. That's why I call you every week when I drive to Red Deer.
Yeah, you said you've got your list, right? You've got your list of calls that you make. Okay, this is my 1-hour car trip. This is my 2-hour car trip.
So you're on that list, right? There's about 5 to 10 people, and it goes up and down depending on if they call me back. But there's about 5 to 10 people that I will call on my road trips because I don't get a chance to call them during the week because I'm so darn busy. But I love talking to people on the road trip. And I have my rule. You know what my rule is?
Yeah, 10 minutes.
When I leave, I call you. So I call Sheldon if I hit the road. And you got anywhere, it depends on the day. But usually I give about a 10-minute window. And if that person that I called didn't call back within that 5 to 10 minute range, I move on to the next person. If, let's say, Sheldon calls back, and I'm already on the phone with, let's say, my mom, my girlfriend, my sister, or someone else, then you lost your place in the queue. I'll get you out. That's how I am. But you love silence, and I think that's weird. Weird. Silence.
Robin
weird.
and Sean at Bones writes an idiot. Who are you talking to? Chevy or are you talking to me? You got to be talking to Chev because I know Robin. And here's my thing, Chev. I know you're wired. You're always talking. You're always connecting. You can't do anything but that. For me, I do that all day. All day.
I do too.
I'm being social. I'm being active. I'm solving problems. I'm figuring out solutions. And for me, if I get into my truck and I go and pick up my Tim Hortons coffee and I turn the corner onto the QE2 and I just start driving. Oh God, Chev, the silence. I'll listen to the radio. I'll listen to the radio till the crow's nest pass when I lose QR. Right. And then after that, and sometimes there's times I listen to music or whatever, but if it's more than an hour or two, at some point the radio gets turned off and I just sit alone with my thoughts. And it's the best time I could possibly spend with myself. Man, I like myself, you know,
when I'm driving in the car. So like when I go to Red Deer, for instance, and I have to leave at 5 a.m. To get back for 7 a.m. for work, I'm thinking about time zones. I'm like, okay, everyone's asleep in this time zone. Where's a time zone that people are awake that I could call someone? That's how extroverted I am. I need to speak to people. I will call someone. I will call Doc and Chef in New Zealand if they're on the time zone that matches the time that I'm on, because I know everyone else is asleep. I need to talk. When I can't find someone to speak to on the drive, especially when it's early in the morning or late at night, man, I'm disappointed. Like, yeah, I'll listen to the radio. You know, actually, it's funny. Well, it's not funny, but, you know, I don't always have a lot of time in my week to listen to all the great content that you'll find here on the NGBN network. A lot of times I'll listen to Rubio's shows. If I miss one of Rubio's shows live during the week, because it usually falls during a work hour, I will catch one of his shows. And then I'll send him 10-page voice text about what I liked about his show. And he referenced it in one of his more recent episodes that, you know, I just gave him some constructive feedback, but I will talk to myself. That's how bad I am. I need to talk. I absolutely need to talk. I think that's why I get charged up every Tuesday night hanging out with you. But I used to think, yeah, you are an extrovert, but you're actually the absolute introvert. And my girlfriend Brittany's like that. Like, she runs a fitness business. She has an online streaming fitness business. You go on her, you think she's the most extroverted person in the world. And then when she turns it off, boy, she does not want to talk to someone. And it took me a while to get used to that.
It's a switch. And I'll tell you, I get recharged by being alone with my thoughts sometimes. Like, I'm the guy, put me out of my trailer in a campground by myself. Actually, it's a little bit creepy I've been in a campground by myself for multiple days. It's a little creepy. But you know what? If I can get away and just have nothing but silence and just deal with my own thoughts, man, that's.
Man, I lose my mind. Listen, I'm a single dad. I split custody with my kids with their mom. There's half a week where I don't have my kids and it's just me and my home. In COVID, it was even worse. There was a period of a year where I didn't have my kids for 10 days in a row. My girlfriend lives an hour and a half away in Red Deer. You couldn't go out of the house. You couldn't see your friends. You couldn't go to your kids' hockey game. I was miserable. I don't think I had a health concern. I had a health issue. I had a tumor in my neck. Man, I was losing my mind, going stir crazy in my house. I definitely am someone who is always trying to be talking to someone. A lot of times it's my mom. I call my mom almost every day. My sister, who lost her husband over the Christmas holiday, I call her every day. I obviously call Brittany every day. I call you every day. And that's what this show has done. It's put us closer together because prior to a year ago, Sheldon, we spoke maybe every 3 or 4 months. And now we speak almost every day. And I love that. I love that about the show. I hate that we have to wrap it up for the week, but we're going to have to wrap it up. We didn't get to any of our leftovers, so we'll put them in the leftover pouch and we'll pull them out maybe next week. Sheldon, you got the final word because I said a whole bunch just now.
You know, again, guys, I just want to thank everybody for joining us tonight because honestly, this little passion project of ours started off with just Chevy and I wanting to reconnect. And, you know, it feels so good to watch the community grow. I love watching you guys interact as you guys get to know each other better. Guys, this is what this show is all about. This is Tuesday night. This is your solitude at the end of the night, just to unwind, connect with connect with a close community, get some thoughts off your plane. We try to read as many of your messages as we can. Guys, I'll tell you what I do. I love, Chevy, that you and I have been able to reconnect. And I love the fact that you guys have chosen to take your time on a Tuesday night at this godforsaken hour to join us. Just a reminder, next week, we're going to be back Tuesday at 11 o'clock Mountain Standard Time. In the meantime, guys, spread the word. Let people know if you like this show, if you like this episode. Let your friends know about it. Let's continue to grow this community. You know where to find us, guys. Thanks so much. We'll see you next week. We're out.